Hello, welcome to FreightWaves Now Tuesday style. Taco Tuesday for some of you lucky folks out there. We're coming live to you from Chattanooga, Tennessee, headquarters 2, and we're above Freight Alley. I'm just so excited, I just can't hide it. I'm here with Nick Austin. We have a developing situation with weather. What could it be? And Donnie Gilbert telling us about market conditions. Are volumes and tender rejections changing? Is the story of 2019 changing now that we're on April 9th and getting far into the spring season? Let's find out. Nick, hello.
Hey, Chad. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for holding down the fort on Monday. And,
no problem, no problem.
Just telling us what in the world could be going on with weather today.
Well, I mean, we're approaching mid-April, right?
Yes.
It's almost at mid-April, but that doesn't mean that winter is over in some parts of the country, even though it's spring. We know that winter holds on across parts of the Mountain West and the Northeast, and that's when we have snow today. So the first area up here, parts of the Cascades, the northern Rockies, there are some scattered areas of heavy snow. We're not talking about a big widespread major storm in that part of the country, but there are areas of heavy snow, some spots of heavy rain in some of the valleys. And up in the Northeast, we do still have some snow that's kind of hanging on across parts of northern New England. And there'll be more of that later on in the day into this evening, especially across Maine. There'll be some spots of heavy snow in northern New Hampshire, parts of the White Mountains. But the rest of the country is looking fairly good as far as lack of snowfall or icy weather. But there is a system, the one that we're watching here out west, that's not doing a whole lot today. Boy, later tonight and into tomorrow, that system is going to turn into an all-out blizzard for parts of the Midwest, parts of the northern plains. It'll be developing late tonight, and then it'll be just kind of trucking on through Wednesday and Thursday. So we're going to go to the road conditions map, another great feature that we have on sonar, and we'll take a look at areas where this blizzard will be affecting later tonight. So of a special concern for overnight drivers and carriers that have overnight loads to take.
Some beautiful areas and beautiful parts of our country.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We're talking about the Dakotas, eastern Wyoming, all the way to Minnesota.
Look at these
roads. But if you notice,
this
is by about 8 o'clock Wednesday morning. We see parts of I-90 over in Wyoming, not quite on I-25 yet, but as I-90 heads into Wyoming as well. From eastern Wyoming, right around, we'll say the Casper area, all the way through South Dakota. And we're talking Rapid City, way over to Pierre, and then all the way into southern Minnesota. Look at all the roads on here on the road condition product that we have showing
snow, ice, possible
closures too. Everywhere you see in the purple are possible closures, including along Interstate 90. So these are going to be major trouble areas beginning later tonight on through the day Wednesday, and then probably even into Thursday. I know this is FreightWaves Now. We want to talk about what's happening now, but it's important to get prepared for what's coming a little bit down the road. So this is going to be a pretty major system impacting areas that got hit by a blizzard last month. Some of the same parts of the Dakotas and eastern Wyoming out there. So
thank you,
That's
Nick.
What's happening as far as weather. Still some railroads are closed where there was flooding in the Midwest that happened from last month. But a lot of the tracks are getting back up and running. There's been a lot of progress made from BNSF and from Union Pacific on getting their subdivisions back up and running. And there are way fewer closures on I-29 in western Iowa too. So things are starting to get back on track.
Starting to get back on track.
Right.
That is what is happening right now. We have right now a developing situation out west in the Sierras. So thanks to Nick Austin for that. And now, Donnie Gilbert, how you doing?
Good afternoon, Chad. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Great to be here with you.
So we're going to start off talking about freight volumes again this morning.
Okay.
So we started off kind of reiterating what happened at the end of the month. We had a peak here for the end of April. And the end of March, I'm sorry.
The volumes just fell off.
Here's the beginning of April and it dipped down. And this is kind of what we expected as it's a year-over-year trend. So, but the last couple of days over the weekend, we've had a bounce back to 98.59. This is a little bit sooner than what I expected. I expected to go probably more in the next week before we saw a good bounce back. So this is positive to see this in our national markets.
That is. But
well, what about
wow,
that one? Yes.
have the tender rejections fallen off the face of the earth?
Again, they're now down to 4.91%. That's the lowest that we've seen in well over a year.
Ever.
So we know we have a lot of excess capacity in the markets. As long as we have excess capacity, the tender rejections are going to continue to stay low, or that slide further just a little bit more.
Okay.
You know, we kind of got down here in the 6 and 7% and thought that was very, very low, and it's kept and continued to keep sliding.
And I think that, you know, you've been talking last week about seasonality, some trends. We're going to see some crossing of produce from Mexico through the Laredo border. We'll probably see a pickup in things in Dallas and Houston and those markets before it spreads out. Hopefully that will be happening soon. I think year over year it did begin to happen on April 8th, 9th, and 10th.
Yes, it did.
Right?
So we've kind of checked Laredo. We have not seen an increase in volumes yet, but we're looking for it. Let's go ahead and look at some of the other national maps. I'm going to use a tree map, which I love our tree maps.
It
gives us a lot of information very, very quickly. And we see still that our biggest markets are Ontario, California is still our largest market. And we still have our Houstons, Atlantas, and working in. But one thing that's kind of starting to get exciting is we see some Joliet, Illinois, Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis markets. We see a lot of Midwest markets starting to pick up and into our top 15, top 20 markets.
Do you want to tell our audience, those maybe who are just listening for a first time, or even just maybe one of the few times that, like, what the heat map represents, the size of the market, what does 0.9% mean, the color, what's the bottom number?
All right, so our tree map starts in the top left-hand corner, and these are the largest markets in the U.S. per volume on a national basis. So we look at Ontario, 478 index points. That is the largest market in the U.S. And since yesterday, it has a 0.9% change, a little bit less than 1%. It has increased.
Going
so just
up.
a little bit.
Right.
As we work down and work to the right, these markets go down and they're getting a little bit smaller as we go. So here in the middle, we got Chicago at 199 index points. And as we keep going down, we see Milwaukee down here at 154. And when we get to the greens are showing a bit larger improvements on adding volume to the markets. And the reds, you'll see with negatives, that's where we're kind of losing some volume.
And the gray, kind of neutral.
Kind of neutral. And as we keep on working, we get down here to the bottom right-hand corner. These are the smallest markets in the U.S. So as we get down smaller and smaller, there's only 17 index points for Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Quincy, Illinois has dropped 13% down to 11.77 index points. And so this is how our tree map works. So the reds are declining markets, the greens are increasing markets, the grays have been neutral markets from yesterday. So, and actually as we see, I'm getting a little bit more excited of seeing some of these Midwest markets starting to pick up as the Midwest region around Chicago. We've got Milwaukee, we've got Kansas City, Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis. All these are starting to migrate in some of the top 20 of our largest markets. So this is a good map to use to get a lot of information very, very quickly on what's going on with our national markets.
Okay.
So next I want to bring up another one of my favorite maps. It's our heat maps for the United States. This is a similar market, except this is showing all of our head haul indexes.
Blue meaning head haul, red meaning back haul.
Yes, sir, and blue means that there are more outbound loads in the market than there are inbound loads, which should show more demand for capacity.
No surprise that Miami, backhaul.
Florida is a backhaul market probably 10 to 11 months out of the year. Some of our very large head haul markets are the big six. You got LA and Ontario. You showed Dallas, Texas there as a large head haul market. We got Memphis above it, Chicago, Atlanta, Harrisburg. And so today I'm going to focus a little bit more on Baltimore, Ohio, Baltimore, Maryland. So we're going to move it over to Maryland now. Looking at on the map, I want you to see that it's right below the Harrisburg market. And so Harrisburg being a head haul market, that's going to attract capacity from these surrounding markets that are showing white and showing red. So whenever you're looking at a specific market, you always need to look at the surrounding markets to see what kind of effects this might have. So Maryland here shows as a backhaul market, but there might be some effects on capacity as Baltimore, I believe, is about a -22. Some of these trucks will move into the Harrisburg area, which will tighten up some of these markets around.
So they're going to get into better position.
The carriers are going to move their trucks into better positions to get better rates and better loads.
Okay.
So let's kind of dive in and look at the Baltimore, Maryland markets today.
I'm surprised that Atlanta is so neutral.
Atlanta will start taking off here in probably about the mid to later May. Well, a little bit further out than that because produce season will start in Florida and it'll start working its way up through Florida week by week as the temperatures rise, kind of sets up. And then we'll start into South Georgia and then work its way up. And of course, Atlanta is going to be one of the center points of the Southeast. So a lot of that freight may kind of move into Atlanta and then disperse out to different markets.
Excellent.
So we got Baltimore brought up here.
Okay, looking at Baltimore, the volume index.
We had a nice increase after the beginning of the month, which I was hoping that would hold. But here in the last day, it has dropped down to 95.82 index points for its volumes.
Interesting that volumes shot up in Baltimore as opposed to what we were seeing nationally.
And that's why I kind of brought up, it was interesting. It wasn't very, very much. It was about a 5% increase, but it's one of the few markets that some markets drop, some markets increase, and this one increased a little bit. But what's really interesting is the tender rejections. Here, when we look at the tender rejections, we have an 11% tender rejection rate in Baltimore.
Much higher than the national average.
It's a lot higher than the national average, but there's a little bit different. Since Baltimore is on kind of the bottom edge of the northeastern corridor, carriers out of Baltimore or if you put a truck into the Baltimore market, you want to get your truck out of the northeast. So there's a lot of lanes that might be very appealing and some that are a lot less appealing. You probably don't want to go back up into the northeast, but the rates are higher going north into the northeast.
Okay.
But your lane's moving trucks out of the northeast into areas such as Chicago, Indianapolis, in the southeast. Those rates are going to be a lot lower because they're a lot favorable because carriers want to get their trucks completely out of the northeast region.
Yes.
So when we break down and look at the actual breakdown of the lanes, here on my next chart, we will see the breakdown of the outbound tender ejections per lane. So here, yes. So here's our local and mid-haul tenders at 5.8% and 4.63%.
Lots of capacity in the market, I take it, for those?
Well, this is 0 to 450 miles. These are the most appealing lanes because they will move loads to Indianapolis, Chicago, a shorter run. And that's important because with a very, very low rate per mile that's appealing for these carriers, they might be around break even. They might be, some of them losing a little bit of money or maybe making a little bit of money, but these are moving the trucks out. So they'll take these loads over your long haul and tweener hauls.
And the drivers can be back in a day, right?
Sure, and it takes one day to make these moves. Yeah. These rates are also very, very low, but these might be 2 and 3 day hauls, and the longer you go, the more money you lose, or the less revenue that's on your truck because of the lower rate per mile. So these are only accepted if they have to move their truck and they're getting a little more desperate. But you would rather move your truck into a shorter market like Indianapolis and then flip that truck around in a head haul market to making a lot more profit.
Interesting. Wow, lots of analysis.
So yeah, so when you see these, and you'll see that this is what kind of goes on in a lot of your northeastern markets. And because when you get down to the PAs and the Marylands, there's a lot of freight that goes back into the northeast. There's a lot of freight that, some freight that goes out. These freight lanes that leave the northeast are the ones that rates are very, very reduced because they're the most appealing. And it's more than just this market, but I like this market because of the separation between the longer hauls and the shorter hauls.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. Thank you, Donnie Gilbert, for bringing it to us like that. Get in position is what I'm hearing. Carriers, get in position, whether it's trying to get out of a backhaul market or trying to position yourself for the seasonality trends that we know are imminent and happening. So we've got some developing situations. I think that rates are, how low can they go? Surely we're seeing it. What is happening right now? Hopefully rates can't go any lower than they are now. Thanks for the analysis and all that to our market experts. Thanks to Robbie Crossland driving that train for us behind the scenes on production each and every day for FreightWaves Now. Tune in and check us out on social media on FreightWaves.com, and please subscribe to our new YouTube channel. We will see you tomorrow on FreightWaves Now. In the meantime, don't worry, be happy.